Hi, everyone. Welcome to our today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Lupe. I'm the program coordinator for Autism Tree. Before we get started, I'll just wait a couple more minutes just to let more people in into the Lunch and Learn. I know today we're expecting a big group, so I'm just going to allow for more people to come in. Okay, welcome everyone. Just before we get started, I'm gonna go over a couple Zoom rules that we have for our Lunch and Learn, and then we will get started with our speakers today. So for a couple Zoom rules, if this is your first time joining our Lunch and Learn, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We do recommend speaker view for presentation, and video sharing is optional, although we would love to see everyone who's attending today. And please type all questions and comments into the chat. We like seeing that interaction with our speakers. And we'll have a short Q&A at the end for any questions that you want to ask. Or if you're not comfortable with asking the questions, you could type it in the chat and I could ask the presenters today. Just a couple Autism Tree updates if you're new or just want to know what's new. We do offer 19 programs. 13 of those programs are in person, 3 are hybrid, and 3 are virtual. We have 4 upcoming events this weekend, the end of January. And you could check our social media for any announcements. For this weekend, we have 4 events. It's our virtual coding workshop on Saturday, January 28th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. We have adaptive dance for ages 11 and 18, the Tap Beaver Studios at 12. And we have a USD basketball home game for our Autism Tree families on Saturday, January 28th at 7 p.m. Up to date, we have 491 impact videos on our Autism Tree YouTube channel. We have currently 321 subscribers. So
there we go.
Today. And to this date, we have 105 Lunch and Learns uploaded in our YouTube channel. If you want to check out any of our previous ones, you're more than welcome to do so. If you want to see this one afterwards or share it, this will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And then this is our 106th Lunch and Learn, and I will pass it on to Angelina, who will introduce our speakers for today. Angelina, take the floor.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, you could introduce our speakers for today.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful, because it's new computer, new everything, and I'm like, it's all different. Wanted to welcome you guys today. This has been our continued work for the last 5 or 6 weeks and continuing for the next couple with all the different services that the Autism Tree Foundation Project can bring to you. And as you've already seen in the last few sessions, we've had Social Security and CalAble, and we're going to be having College to Career next week. So today we're having the San Diego Regional Center, which if you have a child with autism, you're probably dealing with the San Diego Regional Center, but as they change and grow from a little kid to an adult, we should have continued use of them. And I work with the regional centers all over California. They're phenomenal. And as our kids grow up, in planning and keeping them involved, they have so many services for us to learn about, and working in conjunction with Department of Rehab as well to, graduate them from school to college to work. And then what are their services if they're going to be living alone, or they want to learn to cook and then maybe live alone. So there's so many areas for the regional center to be able to be involved to make sure you're engaged with your case manager. So that's why I wanted to bring them into these Lunch and Learns, because they're fantastic. So they're there. Take it away.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Franco. I'm the manager of client services for early childhood. So I oversee all of the units and managers for the early start units. We serve children 0 to 3 years old. So I will be talking a little bit about the younger age group.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Burkard. I'm our intake manager for Lanternman Services. So I support a team of intake coordinators who assist with determining eligibility for anyone ages 3 and older.
Give me a moment. I would share, I'm going to share the presentation. Can you guys see my screen?
So again, we're San Diego Regional Center. And if you could go to the next slide. We're one of 21 regional centers statewide. We're a nonprofit agency serving as a state contracted agency, and we provide case management services to persons with developmental disabilities. We are the second largest regional center in California. We serve both San Diego and Imperial County. We're a very busy place. We currently provide services to over 38,000 individuals. Next slide, please. Next slide. So like I stated, I am from the California Early Start side of things. So that covers children 0 to 3 years old. So our laws and regulations and funding are very different from Brittany's side of things. We are federally funded through Part C for Individuals with Disability Acts, and we're designed to prevent to those at risk to provide early intervention services early enough to make a difference in a children's life. Next slide, please. So who is eligible? Again, children birth to 3 years old. So from the day they're born up until the day before their 3rd birthday. Some of our criteria are children with developmental delays, those with established risk for developmental delays, and those for high risk for developmental disabilities, and I'll go through those areas. Next slide, please. So every child that's referred to us gets an assessment for eligibility. We assess in cognitive, physical, expressive, and receptive communication, social, emotional, and adaptive. Any 125% delay in one or more areas gets them through the door for our services. Next slide, please. Established risk, those are the babies that are born with syndromes and are coming out of the hospital with either Down syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome. And we know down the road that they're going to have symptoms associated with intellectual disability. So we go ahead and bring those children in. They don't need to be delayed at the time of the referral. Next slide, please. And we also take high risk. So there's a long list of all of these things. 2 or more factors get them in the door. These are typically the really premature, low birth weight, traumatic birth history, assisted ventilation, tox positive. If you could go to the next slide. Failure to thrive, hypertonia, theta alcohol syndrome, any 2 of those, and or if the parent is a person being served by a regional center and they have a child, their child is automatically eligible, so we can monitor and keep eyes on them. So anybody can make a referral at any time. There's quite a few ways to get in the door. Most of our children are eligible under one of the 3 categories. We have about 5,500 babies that we're serving at this time, and we get new kids in every day and new kids turning 3 and exiting every day. So we provide service coordination. We do evaluations to determine eligibility. We complete assessments for planning, and we create an individualized family service plan where the family is really at the center of the plan and helps guide the services. Next slide, please. As children get closer to 3, we are determining if they have an ongoing Latterman eligibility. So if necessary, we are going to do assessments. Our eligibility criteria are intellectual disability, autism, cerebral palsy, and epilepsy. It needs to be substantial to qualify for services. However, we have a new category that when a child is getting close to exiting regional center, We also consider provisional eligibility. So they may not have all the criteria to qualify for Latterman, but they may have at least 2 functional limitations in their life activity, looking at self-care, learning, mobility, again, language, self-direction. We consider those for their age group, and we may keep them as a continued period of monitoring before we make a final decision close to age 5. So this was a new category created in the last couple of years. And I will turn it over to Brittany.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about Lanterman over 3 intake and services. So next slide. So when we're looking at eligibility for anyone ages 3 and older, so 3 through adulthood, we're looking at 2 things. So one being that a person has a developmental disability, which is defined as a condition that originates prior to the age of 18. It needs to be something that is going to continue or expected to continue indefinitely. And it also needs to constitute a substantial disability for that individual. And I'll explain all of this further in the next couple of slides. So again, developmental disability is defined under the Lanterman Act is a diagnosis of intellectual disability. Now under the DSM, it's called intellectual developmental disorder, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism, or also known as autism spectrum disorder. And then we do also have what we consider a 5th or other category, and that's for individuals who have conditions found to be closely related to someone with an intellectual disability, and they require treatment and services similar to someone with an intellectual disability. So there's basically 5 diagnostic categories that we look at. Next slide.
Should bring
So-
up right now, sorry to cut you off, but what should be clear for all parents, no matter what age, trying to get eligibility for the regional center, which sometimes they don't know, and you had it on the bottom of your slide, is if they're physically like in a wheelchair and they have cerebral palsy, but they don't have intellectual deficit, then they wouldn't be eligible because physical disabilities alone don't qualify you for this, for a regional center. And a lot of families don't know that. That's key. So what I would say is to the families with, if they've got physical disabilities and maybe lesser intellectual disabilities, to make sure they do neuropsych and meet with a neurologist and make sure they've got all of the medical files possible, because the regional center has a whole team of doctors, medical people that were going to review all your records to help you.
Yeah, thank you, Angelina, for pointing that out. So if a person, if the condition is solely physical in nature or solely a psychiatric disorder or solely a learning disability, then they would not qualify for our services. So again, it has to be defined as a developmental disability per the definitions under the Lanterman Act. Then the second part of our eligibility is that the developmental disability needs to be considered substantially disabling. So it does need to be a major impairment in social or cognitive functioning. And so it needs to significantly impair a person in at least 3 out of our 7 life areas. Next slide. So those significant functional limitations would be 3 out of the 7 areas. We look at self-care skills, communication, learning, mobility, self-direction. And for our older teenagers and adult clients, we're also looking at the capacity for independent living. So whether or not a person can live on their own without any supports, as well as economic self-sufficiency. So are they able to manage money, budget their money, pay their bills, obtain a job, maintain that employment, those sorts of things. So those specific areas, we are looking at the age of the child and what is typically appropriate based on that developmental stage, and then what of those areas might be challenging for them. Next slide. Okay. So if the person is determined eligible for regional center services, some of the things that we offer. So just so everyone's aware as well, we do always look at community and generic resources first before we fund services. So we would look at insurance, generic resources such as school services, things like that. So we are considered the payer of last resort. And so some of the services that we can offer, everything is individualized and unique based on the person's needs and what supports they may need in order to be successful But these are kind of in general, some of the things that we can provide. So for all clients, we provide case management or service coordination services. So just kind of helping families access, again, different resources out in the community. In order to receive funded services through the regional center, an individual program plan or IPP needs to be developed with the client and family and whatever other supports they would like to include. We can possibly provide some behavior consultation services. We again kind of take a look at that. ABA services or applied behavior analysis would be something we try to have the family access through their insurance first, based on some legislation that happened years ago. And then depending on the outcome of that, we look to see whether or not it's appropriate for us to also assist with that. We may be able to provide respite services. So that's having like a more qualified kind of caregiver babysitter to give parents an intermittent break in care. We can also provide some residential services. Typically, this is usually for our clients that are adults. So we have both independent living services as well as supportive living services. We do also have residential placement or residential group homes out in the community. Those can be for children, for minors, but again, more often are for adults. For our adult clients, we can also possibly fund some adult day program services. Next slide, please. We also offer employment services. We do work with Department of Rehabilitation, but we do have job coaching services, mobility training. Again, most of this is for our adult clients, transportation to work and day programs. We can possibly provide some nutritional consultation services, genetic consultation services, oral hygiene consultation services. For our adult clients, we also have tailored day services, which focuses on either assistance with post-secondary education, going to college, volunteer work, or just kind of accessing the community more. And all of our services and our service coordinators are making sure that we are putting the client first and what their needs are. So we definitely also provide advocacy to make sure that all of their legal, civil, and service rights are being upheld. And then again, we can definitely provide some information and referral services. So if a family or a client, adult client has a question, they're interested in doing something, if it's not something that the regional center may offer, then we will try to help them find and access those resources out in the community as well. And so all of those types of services are things that we kind of fall under what we call our traditional type services. We do also have a self-determination program. And so that is kind of a different way for families to access services. And so there is a lot of information on the Department of Developmental Services website, as well as our San Diego Regional Center website, sdrc.org. But just to kind of give you a quick overview, so self-determination basically gives clients and families the chance to choose services and supports that help them with the kind of life that they want. So kind of how it works is the money that the regional center would be using to fund those traditional type services, if the family and client chooses to access self-determination instead, then they basically can take that money and then they are in control of getting those services and using that money to purchase those services out in the community. So it just provides more options for families. And there's, services that again may not fall under traditional services, but under self-determination, it's something that they may be able to access. There is a person-centered plan that needs to be created, a budget that is created. So there are definitely some parameters around it, but it is a different way that families and clients can access services. So just to give a quick overview, if someone is not currently a regional center client and they're interested in accessing our services, again, for over 3, anyone can refer, but we do need, for minors, we would need the parent or legal guardian to consent to going through the intake process. And then If a person is 18 years or older, then they themselves would need to consent to going through the process unless they are conserved. We do have an initial contact form that you can access on our website. It is both for minors, so for children and adults, and it is in both Spanish and English that you can fill out, and it gets submitted to us, and then we will follow up on the referral. You can also call our intake services and follow up that way. And at the end is where we have kind of those numbers and information. Next slide. Oh, and there it is. So if someone gets referred to us for over 3 services, again, we go through kind of a screening process just to make sure it's an appropriate referral. And if it sounds like something that we're going to pursue for intake and assessment, then we send out a packet of information for the client or family to fill out and send back to us. They get assigned to an intake coordinator. And then we have up to 120 days to determine eligibility. So included in that time frame is having an intake meeting with the intake coordinator for them to review information about our eligibility criteria, services, etc. And then they're just asking lots of questions to get some more information about the concerns. And then we are also simultaneously gathering as much records as we can. So any psychological evaluations, medical records, IEP, individualized education plans, school records, etc. And then the intake coordinator meets with our clinical team to determine whether or not we need to do our own psychological evaluation with one of our own clinical psychologists. And then at the end, they review the eligibility team, which is made up of the intake coordinator, the clinical psychologist, and the developmental physician. And so as a team, they make a determination of eligibility based on the information that we've obtained during the intake process and looking at our eligibility criteria. So if you would like to refer, please feel free to again call us for the San Diego Regional Center intake services. That's again for our Lanterman over 3 services. California Early Start has a separate number. And then for our Imperial Valley, we do also have a, if you contact San Diego offices, we'll definitely can reroute it as needed, but we do have a separate intake unit out in Imperial Valley as well to serve that community.
Can I add to what your great presentation was? Just to help parents if they haven't got eligibility but want it no matter what age. One of the first things after you do the intake that I would suggest to everybody is make sure you have as many medical records as possible, and not even if they were born yesterday and they're in your hospital, get every medical record that you can, because then there's another challenge when they're older and they're 25 or 30 or 50, or I have the case with my clients, and you're trying to get eligibility. Well, some of those records are really old, and it's hell for the regional center to try and get all the releases, as which the first thing they're going to send you is releases to fill out. And no matter what, the hospitals, they're terrible at giving them. It makes it a nightmare for the regional center to go try and get them. And they're going to get scant information if you don't help. And I would say you as a parent, go get as many medical records as possible, and you'll get the chance to make copies and give them to the regional center at the right time, because they need them, and that's what they're going to base everything off. And I know with my older clients, it's hard to get. You've got to go meet with the doctors, go get them, and get any updates you can to help the regional center with their eligibility process. That's like the biggest thing.
Yes, great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, they're a nightmare for us to get, let alone you get them.
Yeah.
They're a nightmare. Yeah. But all of the services are amazing, like a tailored day that they were talking about with going to college. My son had tailored day going through college, and it was fantastic assistance to help get through college, and independent living skills at home to teach, cooking, cleaning, whatever the goals are as your child's growing, you can adapt them and ask for a meeting anytime to adapt and change those goals as they learn, and keep planning as they go through life. So the regional center is amazing with all the different assets that they have to help with you. Every case is different.
Thank you.
We do
What
have
do
a
you-
couple oh, sorry, go ahead.
Good. No, I'm going to say questions, please.
Questions.
There's a couple questions from the chat. It says, is it possible to have can I have the contact info of the presenters in order to email them directly? Are we able to share your emails?
Yeah.
That's fine.
At the end, we
Yeah.
always share a recap email, so we'll send that out on Friday, and it has all the resources, including their presentation, and I'll include their contact information. We do have another question, is service eligibility income-based at all?
No.
No.
And then Jeremiah, I see that you have your hand raised. You're more than welcome to ask your question.
It's not Jeremiah, it's me. Hi. So I have a question. So my son, he is with you guys, but am I the only one, or is there other people trying to get respites and there's not enough people to give it to him or others? Because I'm having difficulty getting him his respite.
I know with COVID, a lot of agencies shut down or are having trouble staffing. Staffing across all of our vendors has become very complicated. People have had to move out of state and quit, and unfortunately, vendors don't get paid big bucks. So yes, I have heard that respite is a little bit harder to find, as well as our nursing services. There's a nursing shortage as well.
Because I have like my daughter that was with them, but like you said, they shut down. Now she needs to reapply, but they don't get back to me. 24-hour respite don't get back to me, because that's who I'm gonna have her. They said it's easier if you have somebody who would be a provider, but not even that. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
I would recommend following up with your service coordinator, that they can maybe help advocate on behalf of your child too.
Okay, yeah, I talked to her, but I'm gonna call her again because
call
she
her.
tried calling them too. I was just wondering.
And there could also be multiple vendors that do respite. Or maybe there is a company that you know of that it's a process, but you could bring that to the regional center and see if they could work through the process of becoming a vendor, if they're not. Because the shortage now is terrible because of COVID, not only in companies, but the employees for all the different types of caregiver jobs.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult.
Yeah, because that's what I was wondering, because I actually paid for somebody to give me a break, and that's what I was wondering. Do they have something like that?
Well, if it's a new vendor, let the regional center know if it's somebody you found, because they're open to vendors constantly. There's a vendor, vendorization group, and we're always open to new vendors because there's such a shortage of all the different needs we have. And you might have found one that's not one of their vendors.
Okay, thank you.
I saw in the chat, Faya, I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing. It says that we do provide respite care, if you want to elaborate on that a little more.
Yes, yeah, I'm Faya. We are vendor for respite care with regional center from Comfort Care. Depends on the zip codes you're living. We can provide respite care for you guys. And one of the options that we have, if you have, I know I'm aware of the shortage of caregivers right now, all around, all of the agencies have dealing with this. But one of the options that we have is we can hire your own caregiver, babysitter, any family friends, neighbors, grandparents who doesn't live with you guys. We can hire those person to spend time with your kids or the person who's under the regional center spectrum. So yeah, we have good pool of caregivers as well. In case you don't have your own caregiver, we can provide the respite care for you guys. You can contact us all the time.
What's the name of your respite care company?
Comfort Care.
Comfort.
I can type it in the chat.
Okay. And again, I will share these.
I can share our contact information as well. So we are Comfort Care Home Care. We are located in Scripps Ranch. Our office is in Scripps Ranch, but we do provide service whole San Diego area, Chula Vista, East County and North San Diego.
And then I see that Jocelyn Myers has her hand up. If you're comfortable with sharing your questions, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the parents of Jocelyn Myers, who was under regional center care. Most of her,
She was 2.
yeah, since she was 2 to was it about the 5th or 6th grade, and now she's lapsing a little bit. And now she's she's in 7th grade, and she's being assessed at a 2nd grade level.
Mhm.
And so that there's a lapse there, and we're trying to get her caught up. Is there any services that offer any type of tutoring that would allow, her to progress?
Does she have a service coordinator assigned to her?
Sounds like the case.
At one point in time, and she was saying, do we want to remove the autism tag? And we said no at the time, just in case this type of situation occurred. And another thing is she's sexual maturity also. We're having difficult time with her also. So, she's becoming a young woman, and, she's, finding it difficult to control her emotions among this too. And are there any services that will address that also?
There could possibly be some services or resources that we can offer. If you'd like, you can contact me directly and I can get some more information and look up her case to see what the status is and kind of what the process would be. It sounds like you're currently not active with the regional center, is that correct?
No, we haven't been active for a couple of years.
Okay.
With the regional center. I think when she went into what, 5th or 6th grade?
Yeah.
Was the last time we met with the regional center.
Okay, so I'd be happy to talk with you more and again, just get more specific information about your particular situation. So I can look at again what the status is and look at possibly reactivating her case if that's something you'd like to do. So if you want to contact me directly, again, my name is Brittany Burkard and my direct phone number is 858-576-2984.
Okay, yeah, because like I said, I see the services that you guys are providing, but tutoring services, I don't see up there, and I think that would be a great benefit to some of these kids, especially the high functioning ones that are not really coping with their current school.
So the tutoring services specifically is not something that we offer, but again, we could possibly, through the case management, possibly help provide you with some additional kind of community resources related to that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Brittany, maybe you can also talk about when he was mentioning, sexually, aware or older behavioral issues, about some of your behavioral resources, vendors, ABA therapy, any of the behavioral side. Let them know about those services or vendors.
Like off the top of my head, I can't give you a list of the vendors, but yes, we can possibly provide some behavior consultation services. Or again, depending on if ABA is an appropriate service for that specifically, we have families. Well, in general, we have families go through their insurance to see if there is a behavioral health treatment benefit under their insurance plan. And then depending on what comes of that, then we would look at whether or not we can provide some sort of behavioral consultation type service, or again, trying to help families access other services within the community, the resources that are out there.
I'm just gonna ask a couple questions from the chat. Connie asked, someone told me that their IEP advocate got support for their child to get tutoring.
Yeah, so anytime you have a school-aged child, if there's any issues with school, that's through the IEP and the school process. But yes, there are advocates that can help if that's, and again, that's something that service coordinator could give you community resources for.
And then there was another parent that said, I was told my son didn't qualify for respite. He is in the 3 and up with the regional center. He will be almost 4 in 2 weeks. and he's been with the regional center for almost 2 years.
So every service, again, is very individualized. We do have a respite assessment process we go through. All children need total care and supervision, typically if they're disabled or not disabled, just given the nature of their age. So when we're looking at little ones in respite, we have specific criteria and questions that we need to go through. Again, we have to look at generic resources. What and beyond the normal care of a small child is there needed that's related to the disability? So again, that's a conversation with their service coordinator because every case and every situation is very different.
Okay, thank you. And also thank you, Connie, for sharing. She said Crystal Sanford has a teen group and may address some of these issues related to sexuality, relationships. And she said, check out Crystal Sanford's website. They have an amazing social group called Our Amazing Body and Teens Only Club. So thank you for sharing that, Connie. I'll include that as well in the recap.
But right now we have a meeting with you guys, so I'm just gonna ask
Right.
you how you can help. I mean, we pay for everything out of pocket. We don't rely on anyone. We invested a lot, trust me. But right now the meeting is with the regional center. So how can you guys help?
So I can't talk to your individual child. I don't know who he is or who he is served by. I would have you call their manager specifically and tell them what your problem is.
And
Or
we
you
already,
can
and I have
Call
that in
one of us
writing.
and give us your name and we'll reach out to the manager for you, but
Okay.
we can't answer.
No, I
specifics.
understand.
We don't know the history or the age or the background or the.
So I
geographical,
understand.
you know what I mean?
So is
yeah,
it okay
that's
to email you with my information and you guys will respond?
That's fine.
All right, sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Natalia, for sharing, and Angelina for helping her out. I see that Chanel, you have your hand raised.
I do. Thank you. My name is Chanel. I'm the program manager with Brain Balance. I just wanted to say hello and thank you to the presenters. This is really helpful because actually we've just been approved to be approved as a vendor. And we do have centers across Encinitas, Chula Vista, and all across San Diego. So this will be really helpful information. Are we able to share this link out to the families or the recording, I mean? Or is it just for attendees?
We're comfortable with sharing it. I mean, we post this in our YouTube channel, so anyone is more than welcome to watch it, but it's completely okay on there.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Chanel, do you do neurobiofeedback?
We don't do biofeedback, no, we do our own assessment of different developmental, looking at the different functions of the brain. So we do, our assessment does include the cognitive aspects. So we look at visual and auditory processing, as well as the foundational skills, looking at core, balance, proprioception, and sort of how all of that ties together into the development, where there's developmental delays, and just looking at it from the functions of the brain.
And is it something similar what you produce out of doing your assessments? Like would come out with recommendations for OT, PT, neuros. Is it like a neuropsych evaluation from a neurologist?
It's more so looking at the function. So when we do our assessment, we do a lot of physical exercises and then visual and auditory exercises to see what that looks like by age. And then based on our program, we have a set program that's individualized to each person. So we do serve kids, teens, and adults now, which is pretty awesome. And just kind of gearing that more towards the functions of the brain. Yeah.
Chanel,
Right.
there's a question in the chat. What is your contact name and number for Brain Balance, if you're comfortable with sharing that with us?
Yeah, I can put that in the chat actually.
And is there any other questions that you guys have for Regional Center before we close off? Any lingering questions? No. Okay, well, thank you for everyone that came to our Lunch and Learn today. Usually Dane and Rebecca run these things, but they're setting up last minute details for our 20th anniversary reception, but they will be back to, next week for our Lunch and Learn with Angelina, who will be sharing her personal story with her son. And we just wanted to say how grateful we are for Angelina for setting these last couple of Lunch and Learns for us, because they've been great presenters and great resources for our families. But before we close off, there's a Lunch and Learn picture that we always take. So if everyone who's comfortable with sharing their screen is more than welcome to before we close off, and we just take a group photo. Okay. Oh, there's a question from a parent. It says, I've heard that brain balance can get really expensive. Is that true? My friend has spent thousands, but I heard mixed reviews on the efficiency. Some swear by it and others don't. Chanel, is that something you could answer?
So we do have centers across the nation, and that could vary depending on location. We have centers in East Coast, in the South, and then up the coast on the West Coast. But yes, I mean, our whole sort of selling point too is that instead of going to multiple things like PT, OT, speech, we kind of tackle all those from the developmental side all in one place. And then typically we see families 3 to 4 months up to 8 or 9, depending, because based on the assessment. So again, instead of having years of services and going to every single different place, we can kind of tackle it all at once, a little bit more intense and for a shorter period of time.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
That. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I will go ahead and take that quick photo, and again, I'll count us off. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Thank you for attending our 106th Lunch and Learn, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day. See you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Brittany, so